A former undrafted free agent didn't even have to play in the final preseason game for the Bengals to make the 53-man roster, and in this video, I'll explain how his role could be even more important when Week 1 rolls around. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and just like that, training camp, the preseason, it's all over, and the next step for the Cincinnati Bengals is trimming their roster down to 53 players. The last preseason game is always so fascinating to watch because there are just so many players just hoping to stick around for a practice squad invite or to get another shot on another team. Because ultimately, the coaching staff knows what 95% of the roster is going to look like entering the final preseason game. And you can decipher a lot of those decisions based off of not who plays, but who doesn't play. And this was incredibly notable for wide receiver Mitchell Tinsley. Now, everybody learned who Tinsley was last week when he caught 2 touchdowns against the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. And that game mattered so much that Tinsley, who is a former undrafted free agent who signed with the Bengals in February on a veteran minimum deal, someone who was basically an afterthought for most of the offseason, he didn't even have to play on Saturday against the Indianapolis Colts in order to secure a spot. Tinsley, Charlie Jones, Andre Yosevach, and obviously Teagan's and Jamar Chase, none of them played Saturday. Obviously, the starters weren't going to play, but there were still plenty of reserves and backups throughout the roster that were held out just to save them from injury. And for Tinsley to earn that after just 2 weeks of preseason action, that was huge for him. So you can safely predict that Tinsley is going to make this team as one of probably 6 receivers on the initial 53-man roster. As for who did play at wide receiver during the game, it was Jermaine Burton out there for the majority of the first half until he appeared to re-aggravate his knee injury on a punt return. And I think this took a lot of people by surprise considering the fact that Burton is still probably going to make this team regardless if he played or not, but maybe him being out there on the 3rd preseason game just like it was last year, maybe that was a sign that he still needs to earn his spot a little bit. I don't think that was the case considering that he missed about a week of practice in the last week's preseason game with a knee injury. I think he was out there mostly to knock off the rust and get some reps in. Unfortunately, though, he was in a lot of pain when he went down, and it appears to be that same knee injury that kept him out of practice. So now you're entering a situation where you have 2 weeks left into the regular season. You have a guy, Mitchell Tinsley, who you really like as your wide receiver 5 or 6, and potentially your wide receiver 6 in Burton. He may not be ready to go for week 1. And what an opportunity this would be for Tinsley to not only make the team, but to be active in week 1 and potentially see some playing time. He's clearly earned the trust of Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor, and this entire offensive hierarchy. And while Burton was fighting to get that trust back, the injury bug caught him at the worst time. There have been some very memorable wide receiver standouts for the Bengals in the preseason. I can think back to Damian Willis, Armand Binns, Dane Sanzenbacher, Alex Erickson. I don't know if Tinsley's any better or worse than any of those guys, but he's definitely earned his spot, and it was really cool to see him not even have to earn it in week 3. As for other parts of the roster, I'm really interested to see who takes that final defensive tackle spot. If they happen to go 5 defensive tackles, I think it's between Howard Cross III and Taven Bryan. My mind is leaning towards Bryan because he's a veteran. He can play multiple positions, whereas Cross, I just don't think he's ready for actual NFL snaps yet, and he'd make a perfect practice squad player. There's also a potential injury at safety to watch out for. Dajon Anthony left the game with an apparent injury, and there's already some questionable depth there. PJ Jules stepped up and played pretty well, but I don't know if they're going to have him make the team instead of looking for a guy on the waiver wire. They could go either way there. Maybe they like the fact that Jules has been in the system enough to the point where they just want to keep him instead of looking for an outside answer. Roster cuts are going to be here before you know it, so keep it locked in right here on A to Z Sports Cincinnati for all the latest updates as the Bengals put together their initial 53-man roster.